Welcome to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. Doing business in life with a purpose, serving others and achieving success. I'm your host, Steve Ramona. We created this show for you because we want everyone to be motivated, inspired, and educated to learn how to do business and live life to make an impact in the world. While you listen to my incredible guests today, I want you to think about how will you serve today and what impact will you create today. Now, I said achieving success, and I kind of got this from my guest coming up because you can see behind her, it says achieving success. We all want success, small, medium, or large. She is such an impactful businesswoman. She's doing crazy things at such a young age. If I was doing these things at that young age, I probably wouldn't be talking to her because I'd be a multi-billionaire. But you're going to be excited. Get your pad of paper ready, get your pen ready, and take some notes. Olivia, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on. I'm so excited for this conversation.
I am as well. You know, we've in the green room talked about podcasts and networking. What's your thought on that? Because people go, "Oh, a podcast, I can't do Joe Rogan, but I don't want to, do it because it costs too much money or takes too much time."
Well, I have many opinions on this, and it kind of depends
Mhm.
on what way you're looking at it, right? Are you looking at it as a host or as someone who's going to be a guest or as networking altogether? I think one of the most powerful things being part of the podcast community, whether it's a host or a guest, is exactly what I just said. It is really and truly a community. And I get calls all the time from different hosts or people who are getting on podcasts, and we start talking. And sometimes it's after my core work hours. And I recently even had a conversation where I was on the phone on the way home from dinner with my boyfriend. And we hang up and he goes, I only heard like part of that conversation, right? Because we're sitting right next to each other. So obviously he could hear a little bit of her end, but he obviously heard what I was saying. And he goes, it does not cease to amaze me the way podcast hosts talk to each other. It is we're here to support. How can we support? How can we help elevate each other? Even though at the end of the day, we're all podcast hosts, we all want, right, the top guests. We want the good conversation. We want the listens. It's also, okay, how can we help each other elevate? How can we and I think that is the key to networking overall is how can we help each other long term, serve each other long term, and not just for the quick return or that quick satisfaction, sometimes that monetary gain right away. It's like, okay, what are the connections we could build? And I think, especially in today's society, that's one thing we forget a lot of the time, that it doesn't need to be a tat for tat, positively or negatively. It's long term. And if we look at our network as the people who stand next to us, the people who elevate us, support us, and really build those relationships out, it will not just help you in your professional life, but in your personal life as well.
I think podcasting is the new network, virtual networking. You got your virtual referral networking groups, and we're a real life example of sharing, guests back and forth and information and referrals and all those things. And it's changed my life and everybody in the audience who's listened to my shows or knows me that it's been a complete change. What would be your thought for somebody being a guest on a show and they're nervous?
Oh, this is a good one because I get this all the time, especially from my clients who I work with to get them on shows, and it is their first time. And I remind them right off the bat, just like anything in life, and whether it's your first job interview, your first day at a job, we all get nervous, but it is a conversation. That other person on the side of the screen is another human being. They want to talk to you. They want to have a conversation about your experiences or your expertise. And remember that. And one of the amazing things that I found being a host myself, but also being on the other side, like I am today, right? Working and being a guest on an amazing host show is those hosts will help you navigate it. I recently had a guest who it was her first time on, and she struggled at certain points and she got flustered because I could see that she didn't know whether she needed to keep going. And I just live on air was like, it's good. You answered that well. And I like eased her through it. And by the end, she was saying stuff that I was like, I knew we'd get here. And that's what you need to be able to do as a host sometimes. But as a guest, you need to also understand that the host is there to support you and not look at it as they're higher than me, or, you know, I have to show up at this perfect level. We're all humans. And part of the amazing thing about being on podcasts is the fact that you get to show that human side of yourself. You get to connect not just with the host, right, on that one-on-one conversation. And again, it ties back to the power of networking, but you get to connect with all their listeners. And when the more you show that you are human and you aren't perfect, you show that nervousness in the beginning, that ease, it becomes more real and people really get to connect with you. And the other part that I remind people is like, I've done hundreds of shows, whether it's as a host now or as a guest. Um, but every time I do it, I go into it with those same butterflies. As it doesn't matter who I'm talking to, if I'm a guest or if I'm a host, I have those butterflies, and those butterflies don't go away. It doesn't matter how many you've done. And realistically, I would say if they do go away where you're not feeling them, are you growing? And that's the other question you want to ask yourself.
That's a great question. And I love the fact sports, and I play a lot of sports. I think you said you played sport. If you didn't have butterflies before the game, then you're disinterested a little bit. You should be nervous. You know, the other thing that you said, which was really important, the conversation. And I use this imagery. Right now, say we're sitting in a coffee shop. If one of those two major ones were sponsoring me, I'd say their names. But I'm going to keep it away until they come call me. A little short plug there. But we're sitting at the coffee shop and we're talking back and forth like we are now. And one of the person at the other table leans over and goes, Olivia, you just said something about a podcast host. That's what your audience is doing, right?
Yes. And that's the thing too, is on my podcast, we just talk about achieving success and everyone's journey. And it's really all about connecting an individual and their story and making it relatable for anyone listening on the other side. Because just like networking, and you kind of said this earlier, podcasting is becoming the new network. It is about like the theme of my show, and the name of it is Achieving Success with Olivia Atkin. So it is about your journey to success and what that looks like and how that could pivot. And yes, sometimes we talk more tips and tricks. Sometimes we do talk about those sad moments in life, those deep struggles. I've had people open up on my show about things they had never told anyone. They just got so comfortable they were
Yeah.
willing to. And so I also tie back to those moments with individuals who are thinking about being on podcasts or starting their own podcast. I was like, how comfortable are you with having the in-depth conversations? Because that's ultimately what people are going to relate to. And it's also your expertise, right? A lot of the consulting I do now is within the realm of podcasting. When I started my business, and a division of my business is consulting and speaking, it was all within professional development and personal development. And as my podcast took off, and I was having conversations and networking calls and events, and they asked me what I do, I'd run through the three divisions of my business. And when the podcast came up and I was talking about the success it had, other hosts started asking me questions. And I took a minute after a month, 6 weeks, and said, wait, if everyone's coming to me about this, and now it's no longer just hosts asking me questions about their podcast and this and that, it's people asking to be on, shouldn't I offer that? And I think as business individuals and people who want to serve and authentically serve their community and give back, sometimes that can look like a business, but are you doing it for the right reasons? And are you doing it to actually serve others? So my consulting side has become 80% on podcast consulting, not because I was like, oh, here's a market. I just kept being asked for. And I said, okay, let me provide the information that's missing. Let me provide you and help you. And then I still have, the clients I help with career development, resumes, cover letters, strategically thinking, personal brand, all those things. But it's bringing it to what that specific person needs in real time, I think is also so important.
That's well said. I love what you're saying because it's simple. And I'm going to delve into that a little bit later. But one tip I learned when I started my podcast in October 2022 was listen. Let's talk about as that tip, because I think it's one of the most important tips. Talk about listening as a host.
I think it's one of the most profound skill you need to be a good host. Every time I'm done a podcast recording, no matter who, if I've had a celebrity on all the way down, right, to that employee, everyone gets off and goes, that was the best show I've done. Like, you're really good at this. And I have people come to me, right? And they say, I've listened to your show. It's amazing, but I don't really hear your expertise in it. You give your tidbits, but you don't overpower. And I said, that's the point. I prep so well that I can guide the conversation without having to fill the silence because I've already built in ideas, and preparation is so important. But I also know, just like in life, you plan and there's that space for unknown. So my guest might come on and after the first question, and the first question I always ask is, what does success mean and look like to Steve Romano? And they answer that and they could go far left. And I'm like, oh no, we got to hit on that. You said something 3 minutes back. I picked up on that key word because I'm paying all my attention to you, body position, and I'm able to go, okay, I got to remember this and then follow up with that. The other part of that as a host and the importance of listening that also then plays into other areas is reading the body language and the tone. I think that is so important because whether it's a host or you're in a boardroom having a meeting or out to dinner with a group of friends, if you can't listen and give your full attention to the conversation, you might not pick up on the tone. Someone might not tell you they're not comfortable with talking about something, but I will tell you, body language changes, tone of voice changes, how they answer a question is going to change. And if you can pick up on those small markers, especially as a host, you can pivot the conversation where it doesn't become awkward, where there isn't a misstep, no one realizes, but you were able to pay attention to those things. And same thing for the dinner table. If I'm out to a bar on a Friday night with 10 people and I ask a question and all of a sudden someone else says something to kind of mark it up, and I don't know those two people's history. I'm new to the group, right? We'll say that. And I start to notice the other person is now getting a little with sharp on their responses. Cut, people are drinking, maybe they might not realize, but I go, oh, wait, let's divert the conversation because this can go downhill quickly. It's a skill that will give you grace for a long period of time.
Amen to grace. I love it. I love this a lot. And what's interesting, audience, Olivia's younger. I'm not going to ask her age. Never ask a woman her age.
I'm fine with sharing it. I am 29 years old.
Okay, she's 29. Thank you for sharing. I'm not asking. The universe, I want to come after me. I'm 62. But we're both successful podcasts. So it doesn't really matter the age you are to start this journey.
I think it doesn't matter the age. It doesn't matter where you are. I just had a conversation with someone the other day who was like, oh, how long do you think you're going to do your show for? Right. And I said, I don't see it right now. Just like everything in life, things can change. But I said, right now, I don't see a time where I'm ending my show. Not just because, oh, who knows where the business might go, but I go, it's so rewarding for myself, for the people I can connect with, for the audience, that why would I stop? Especially when it's adding so much value. I think one of the big misconceptions people have around podcasting and whether to get into it or if it's the right time, just like in life, not making a decision is making a decision, right? If you
Amen.
keep stalling it, you're just stalling it. It's life will always be busy. Life is always going to be moving. There's going to be that next unknown like thing that populates. But at the end of the day, ask yourself, like, what are you willing to give into it? You can be successful at anything, and your age does not matter. It's what you bring to the table. I have clients who are close to 70 in their early 70s who now want to start a podcast solely because they want to share the wisdom and life experience they have had. And I think that's the powerful thing about podcasting and just being able to have your voice be heard in a way that you might not have had it that ability in other areas and other facets.
Yeah. If you've got a message, podcast is the way to go. Your voice, your message. And as a host, you become a thought leader. You've told me
Mhm.
stories today, and I've told you some. We've become thought leaders, and people are reaching out to us. I tell audience, how would you like 3 to 5 referrals a day? Just
Mhm.
want you to think about that because me and you have served people, built relationships through the podcast and outside the podcast. Our business just flows. And I'm with you. My podcast is like drinking water and eating food every day. It's a necessity. I don't see me, I'm 62. I could see me doing this till, 18, 20 years because it's fun as
Mhm.
well. Let's get to be guesting because I think that's important too. My goal in 2024 and I've done is to be on more shows. What is the challenge that you hear from your clients that are guests that can maybe give a tip to this audience?
So it's a challenge and it's something people don't think about at the same time.
Mm,
I have conversations with people, and I'm going to start with this area of it first, who I talk to. And one of the things I do is I guarantee get people on 8 podcasts. That's one of the packages I offer. It's called the exposure package. And when I talk to people about it, some people are like, oh, I could get myself on podcasts, or I've occasionally gotten on podcasts, or I don't need that. And I go, okay, well, what kind of podcasts have you been on? Or like, and they answer me and I go, well, how was that conversation? And then they come back to me and I go, was that beneficial in any way? And they go, oh, wait, no. And I say, that's the difference. It isn't just about being on podcasts, right?
mhm.
Right now, there's a little over 3 million podcasts in the world. Um, Both of our shows are top ranking podcasts globally. So they're the top of the top. But at the end of the day, it is about purposefully getting on podcasts that align with what you want to talk about. You're going to have that good conversation. It is intentionally doing that. And a lot of people who think, oh, I could just like call up a host and get on a show, you can. But 70% of podcasts don't make it past episode 8 because everyone, and I'm not trying to say this anyway, a lot of individuals don't realize the time, the energy, the work that goes into it. They pick up the mic, they say, I could do this. And then there isn't a strategy behind it, there isn't consistency behind it, there isn't anything. And after 8 episodes, they get tired. And that's a difference too between certain podcast hosts and others. But the question I ask is, have you done it intentionally? And how much time do you really want to spend to intentionally get on certain shows? Because it does take the researching of shows, having conversation with hosts, not just making sure it aligns with paper on paper, because I know firsthand it could look great on paper. Personality, you're going to clash, or they might be going through transition of what kind of guests they're looking for. So you're not going to align. So it's really important too of like how much of that are you willing to do? And then for the individuals who have never thought about podcasting, I go think about it as your community, your network, the marketing you get to do just by sharing who you are. No one likes the
Mhm.
car salesman.
No.
I mean, it's a necessary job, and I love my car salesman. I go back to him every few years because my lease gets up, and like that's my guy. I
Mhm.
have a dealership who the owner owns a few, so I have a little choice. And I'm my car guy, and I'm going to him. I am loyal because of the service he provides. But no one wants the hard sale
Right.
car salesman. Podcasting and being a guest gives you that ability to soft sell, because the person that feels connected to you is 10 times more likely to come to you than the person who's not. But again, it's the same question of how intentional do you want to be when you get on podcasts? What is your goal? And as long as you're transparent about it, it makes the whole process easier.
I love it. Competition. We
Mhm.
do the same thing, pretty close to the same thing, but we're happy to be, happy to have you on my show.
Mhm.
That's the power of it. Two plumbers are going to fight for one job. They're probably still going to go through it. There's no going here. It's the community. What does community do? They serve each other. And that's what the right people doing podcasting, because you're right, there are people that quit and the numbers prove it. And I don't know what they are off the top of my head. So let me ask you the 3 million question. I call it the 3 million question. And I hear this all the time. Somebody goes to you and says, I want to do a podcast, but there's 3.1 million podcasts. How am I going to shine?
So that's a great question, and I'm gonna give you a little insight too that I try to share with people. When podcasting came out and really became a thing, right? If we look back a few years ago, it really blew up, in my opinion, in the beginning COVID, because people didn't have other things to do, and podcasting like really went to a next level. I hadn't even started my show yet, but I just heard the word podcast more and more. When I started my podcast November 1st, 2022, that is the day it launched, um, there were over 4 million podcasts. Because at that time, people, everyone thought they could launch their own show. They didn't know what it takes. So many people started their own podcast. But again, back to the stat I shared earlier, not as many people stuck with it. So over time, platforms like iTunes, Spotify, they clean house and they go, okay, what are the shows that aren't updating, haven't been listened to, and they'll clear them out. So then it went down from 4 million to 3.5 million. The last update they did, it got up to just a tad higher. I think it was 3.1
Mhm.
million. I'm assuming by the next round it's going to be in the mid to high twos. That's because they're slowly cleaning out those shows. They are gracious and wait like 6 months to a year to make sure a host isn't taking a break. And not just are they not taking a break, but no one's tuning in.
Mhm.
But it's also about, to answer the second, your main question here, it's about saying, what is my superpower and what can I bring to the community? Right? We talk about success, leadership, all these things on my show. One of the amazing things about my show is that it's niche without being too niche. Same with yours.
Yep.
It's niche because it has its overarching theme without like straddling the bottleneck here
Yep.
and like strangling, I mean, and not giving yourself room to grow. I do a lot of podcast audits. And when I dive into it, one thing I say to a host is, okay, well, you're only willing to bring on, and I'll use this person's show as an example without giving names or titles. When I started, offered to do an audit for someone I knew needed it. And it was in the beginning, and he didn't take me up on it. And then I tried giving him a really good guest for his show that had become a client of mine that fit. It was in the sports industry. His podcast is within the sports realm. And he brings on former athletes to talk about entrepreneurship or business and this and that. This guy didn't play in college, but he is affecting how sports safety is done now, right? So great guess, great new ability to bring in new audience base, build your audience,
Yeah.
prospectively grow your show in a way. He came back to me and he said he wasn't a college athlete. He won't be a guest on my show. And I said, I thought to myself, and I said this to him, you are limiting yourself so much, because if your number one criteria is that they had to formerly be a college athlete or a college athlete now, your pool is only so big. So you're already starting there. And then you're not looking at and if they're actually going to be able to hold a good conversation.
Yeah.
You're just going, okay, they meet this criteria, they could come on, and you're missing, and he has had guests on that really can't hold the conversation, and you feel that, and then you turn away listeners while trying to build it. So it's one of those things where I always stress the importance of, as long as you have a message and you want to share something, become a host, but build it out strategically where you can grow and where that you don't strangle that bottleneck so tight that 8 episodes in, you have nothing else to talk about because you're just repeating the same thing.
Yeah.
You're not, 20 episodes, you're not having the same problem. The other food for thought I always give hosts who go, okay, do I start my own show, this and that, is never just do a solo show. Because inadvertently, again, it's all about strategy. And that's one of the things I press when I help podcasters start their own podcast, is it's all about the strategy. You can have solo episodes, but if you inadvertently say, I'm never going to get a guest, and you don't lay it out where you can put guests in, you're going to run out of things to say.
Yeah.
And then again, it's back to the stat. So it's those things. But the one thing I do tell every person who comes to me asking about should they start their own podcast is go for it, because you never know how rewarding, how fulfilling, and the journey it's going to take you on.
Amen. That was an audience. Keep in mind, she's an expert. She's a thought leader in podcasting. She made a mistake there, but she jumped right over it, and you still got the point. You just are real live and didn't even know you did it. You said the wrong word. You corrected yourself, but your point still got across. We're human. We're fallible. Love it. Love it. See, we're just proving the point. And I lost my point. In regards to podcast, I know I'm thinking so many notes here. When somebody does a podcast as a host and they're stuck, do you help unstuck them?
Yeah. And I think sometimes, again, it goes back to the original vision and understanding how to pivot. But getting stuck, I think, especially when we're in the thick of it, can be easy to do, especially if you've gotten your groove or you didn't set up the show to be able to grow. I personally haven't had that experience yet because of the way, I know it's due to the way I set up the show and the guests I had. I am currently working with a host who has gotten stuck. And the very first question I ask is, why are you stuck? Is it the time for the show? Like, you don't have enough time where you are right now? Is it because you don't know what to talk about? You feel like the conversation's repeating itself? Is it the kind of guest you're on? Like, where do you sit today? Because back to my company name, Achieving Success LLC, and the podcast and everything I do, is it is okay to change. Your success goals can change. But let's get to the bottom of what makes you feel the way you're feeling now about your show, about what success looks like. Then from there, we can uncover why you're truly stuck.
Yeah.
Because if you're just telling me you're stuck, well, are we going to put a Band-Aid on it, or are we going to get to the root cause of the problem? So it's really, let's get down to the root of it and then work our way back up to the top. 9 times out of 10, I shouldn't say it like 9 times out of 10. A lot of times I see part of the reason people get stuck are for 1 or 2 reasons. One being they did not set up their show strategically for being busy. So the one question I always ask someone who wants to get into podcasting, how many shows do you want to release? And they give me an answer. And I said, 6 months from now. If you are just as busy, if not busier, than you are today. Are you going to be able to sustain that episode release?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, okay, well, we better go back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
Because that's where your burnout and your stuck's going to start to happen. And then you're going to lose followers. It's going to end up backfiring on you to some extent, because to the example of, you know, Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, Burger King, if you don't know, like, let's say you go to Chick-fil-A. I'm saying this because I'm going to Chick-fil-A tonight for dinner.
Yeah, there you go.
So Chick-fil-A is on the mind, so we're just going to use that. If I don't know when Chick-fil-A stops serving breakfast and moves to lunch, and I show up accepting breakfast and I get lunch, am I going to be a happy person? No. If you tell me when you start releasing podcast episodes, you're going to do 1, 2 a week. And your first week, and I do see this when I do audits and I start working with hosts, they get super excited and it's a great feeling having their show out. And they basically release all their episodes right away.
Oh.
They strategically record, and then they make the fatal mistake of like getting super excited and just going, we're going to drop everything. We're going to drop 4 days this week, 4 days next, and we'll just keep going. And it's not sustainable.
Yep.
So I say, as a listener, if you go 4 this week, 4 next week, and then all of a sudden the following week you're 3 or 2, and then you go back up to 3, your inconsistency is there. And I'm going to get frustrated as a listener, and I'm going to go and listen to a different show.
One. Yeah.
The same thing, the other thought that I always bring to a host is, what do you want your listeners to get out of your show? What drives you to host this show? Because the listener's going to mark with that. But again, it goes back to, or the second part of what really gets people from the ground up is the one being the time they really allocate to it, but the second being what they hope the listener gets. And when you start getting confused with that, then you get stuck because you don't know where to turn, what kind of guests you really want, what kind of conversation, what goal. And so if you know what you want the goal of the show to be, everything else starts to become simpler. And that can change. Again, back to achieving success. You can have a show going one way and then you transition to a different part. Well, instead of just pivoting a whole 180, how can we strategically work that in so you don't lose listenership, you gain listeners, and people don't get frustrated with now a whole new different style of show? They understand it. The other third thing, this made me think of it, that I want to bring up, and Steve, you probably get this a lot, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is the idea that people misconstrue what a true podcast is. A lot of times someone will come to me and they'll say, well, I have a podcast, or I want you on my podcast. And I do my research, right? I do my back end work and I go try to find it. I'm like, I don't find you anywhere. Where can I listen to this show? And they go, LinkedIn Live. I do it once a week. That's not a podcast. No. It's a live show. It's a LinkedIn Live. Are you taking that anywhere else? Are you taking that to an audio platform? No. Well, then the conversation should be, and I work with people and I set their podcasts up for them, is like, okay, well, let's set you up on a podcast. But so frequently the terminology gets missed that a podcast is just the audio. Like Steve and I do, we also put it on YouTube. Mm-hmm. But if someone solely put their show on YouTube, that does not make it a podcast. If someone solely did a, well, now YouTube does live too, a YouTube live, a mm-hmm. LinkedIn live, Facebook live, you name it, that's not a podcast. Unless you're also then putting it on the podcast platforms. Now, again, some hosts do that, and that's great. And then, yes. But if so many people get that word misconstrued.
Yeah, and The great problem we're having right now is we're running out of time because we could talk all day. So I'm going to add this before we end. Part two is got to come back. We're definitely going to bring you back. My thought is you're absolutely right. That's alive. It's not evergreen. The power of a podcast, and it just happened. Somebody listened to a show 6 months ago that I did, and they bought the guy's program. Do you think he was happy? Hell yeah. And that's what you teach. Why I wanted you on. Right. That's our golden nugget.
And that's the thing I try to stress with everyone across the board. And I'm so glad you brought that up right before we ended, is I say to people, do not come to me if you're going to ask me how quickly you can get a return on your investment. It isn't about the quickness. It's about.
She's made a great point, and we're just waiting because little technical difficulties.
Long term.
Yeah.
Hold on. There we go. So.
Yeah. Hey, tech happens. It's okay. Keep going.
No. So what I was saying, because I don't know where it cut off, is one thing I tell people, and I stress this, I am very transparent with it. Do not come to me if you are going to be a guest on my show or any show, right? Because I work with a lot of people who just want to get on shows. Do not come to me if you're going to ask me how quickly you can make money from being on my show today. Like in a week, 2 weeks, what's that return number? And give me a number, right? It's the power of podcasting, and the true power, and I call it the Netflix effect, is that I release one episode every single Tuesday. So we're 67 episodes in now. I still get listens to episode 1. Every single week. And that's because someone new finds the podcast, whether it's the episode that just released or frequently released, and they go back, and then all of a sudden, every episode, boom, 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 starts getting a listen. And then people go to that business owner, go to their services, and reach out to them. And that is one of the most powerful things. It's about the long-term game, not the short-term game.
Podcast binging is the new action word in business. When you have people doing that, it's gold. But I can keep going on, and you're absolutely right. And the other thing I'll say is Joe Rogan is a TV show. He calls himself the Joe Rogan Podcast Experience, whatever the title is. He's got another 100 million or 500 million from Spotify. That's a TV show.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking podcasts where everyday person can do it. And you are an absolute blessing, Olivia. Audience, I hope you took notes. But if you didn't, how can they reach out to you and learn more?
So they can reach out to me on LinkedIn by searching Olivia Atkin or the Achieving Success LLC LinkedIn page. You can reach out to me at my website and go to the website and reach out at achieving-success.com, or you can email me at olivia.atkin@achieving-success.com. I personally answer every single email. It might take a few days, but I do answer within a week, business days wise, so 5 business days. I will get back to you, and I will personally answer every single email.
Thank you for doing that. Here's my tip, and I say this at the end of every one of my shows lately. What I love about podcast is there's golden nuggets here. There's $1 million tips that Olivia gave you for your podcast, whether you're guesting or hosting. What does podcast allow you to do? Forward and backwards, forward and backwards. Go to 20 minutes, go to 10 minutes. Watch this a number of times, at least twice, or listen to it. Grab those tips. And then the other power of podcast, you can reach out to her. Hey, I had a question about this guesting you were talking about and about the network. Can we talk more about that? This is the power. And this incredible episode is available to you. And guess what? It's free. We're going to talk more about that in our next episode about guesting and charging and all that. But not today. But I do want you to remind you my TV show, Together We Serve, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. Also, podcast swag is out. Hats, t-shirts, hoodies, doing business with a servant's heart. I've got the link in the show notes. And last but not least, thank you all for listening. This has been an incredible episode. Share with your friends. Comment on YouTube. Comment on the podcast platform. Tell her how much you love her, because I love her and I'd love to see that. And we'll see you all in the next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart.